Hello, welcome everybody to this special Business Green webinar. It's the UK Green Business Awards live judges Q&A. Thank you so many people for joining us. We'll just give everyone a minute or so. I've got the alarm going off in my ear saying more people are joining the lobby. So we'll just give everyone a minute to join us. But thanks so much for taking part today. I'm James Murray. I'm the Editor-in-Chief of Business Green, and so today's session we're delighted to be joined by three veteran judges of the UK Green Business Awards and before it the Business Green Leaders Awards, who are going to be offering some insights into what makes a good entry and how to catch the judges' eyes with your submissions. I'm delighted to be joined by Maria Nazarova-Doyle, who is Global Head of Sustainable Investments at IFM Investors. We also have Mike Pitts, who's Deputy Challenge Director for Net Zero Heat at Innovate UK. And last but not least, Trewin, who is co-founder of Sizzle Innovation and also a Lifetime Achievement Award winner at the UK Green Business Awards in previous years, so he can give you both the winner's perspective and the judge's perspective. How we're going to run the next 45 minutes or so is I'm just going to give a bit of housekeeping notes, a bit of an overview of the awards and some of the reminders on the entry process, and then going to ask the judges for their reflections on what makes a good entry, and then we'll open it up to a Q&A. So please do drop your questions and any points you may have in the chat, and we'll try and get those to you. This session is being recorded and will go live on Business Green in the coming days. So if there is anything you missed, or if you want to share this with a colleague, you'll be able to do so. Brilliant. So that's it for the intro. In terms of a few housekeeping notes, the UK Green Business Awards are now in their third year. They are the successor to the Business Green Leaders Awards, which ran for, I think, over 10 years. So we're into sort of the 13th or 14th year of these awards. Last year we had record attendance. We had nearly 600 people in the room at the brewery on a summer's evening, and it's just always a wonderful event that brings together so many people from across the green business community and is a fantastic chance to sort of showcase the many brilliant projects, individuals, teams and companies that are pioneering the net zero transition and driving the green economy onwards. It's one, genuinely one of the best and most inspiring things we do at Business Green, and we're really proud to be able to run the awards. To that end, the awards are always free to enter. We like to keep it as open as possible to as wide a range of businesses as possible. So you can submit your entries at any time. And as I say, it is free of charge. The deadline for entries this year is 5 p.m. on the 28th of February. But I don't think I'll be giving away too many state secrets if I say there's always a little bit of flexibility in that. We tend to extend it by a week, so there might be a little bit of time to get it in, but then it will be no more than a week extension. So aim for the 28th of February, and that's the best time to get your entries in. The finalist list will then be announced in late March, and then the winners will be announced at the awards ceremony on the 11th of June at the brewery in central London, which is a Wednesday evening. So please do, when you are putting together your entries, make sure you've got all those dates in your diary, and hopefully you are able to attend. Ticket prices for the event are now on the website, and we can do full table packages, but also for smaller organisations there are bespoke packages of a couple of seats or a half table. So please do check those out. In terms of other housekeeping notes, always good to check the terms and conditions on the website. There's a few details there that you might want to be aware of, and also really closely read the criteria for each individual award. Last but not least, we often get asked how the process works. So we get the entries in. The shortlist is produced by the editorial team, so we have the task of reading all the many entries. I think last year there was best part of 400. Awful lot of reading to get through, and the quality of them really is getting stronger every single year. From there we produce a shortlist, typically no more than 10 companies, often a bit smaller for each category. The judges will then consider that shortlist. They have about a month or so to do to read through all the entries, and they score the entries. Typically, the way it works is it's a score out of 10. Sort of half the points are awarded for kind of the quality of the entry, how clearly it's written, how impressive it is, how compelling the story is, and then another half is sort of for the innovation or the noteworthiness of the entry. How's it different? How's it exciting? So those are kind of the two things that all the categories are broadly looking for. The judging process, we have a judging list, and you can see everyone who's listed on the website. It's all transparent. It's about 30 people, and we're splitting them into 3 or 4 groups. That way, the judges don't have to read literally hundreds of entries each. It makes it a bit more manageable for them, and it also means we can avoid any conflicts of interest. So no one will be judging an award in which they or their partners feature, or a category in which they are a member of that industry. So it avoids any conflicts that may appear there. Then we get together for a judging day and discuss the entries, and finally vote on who should win and who should be a highly commended entry. So that is the process. We try to make it as robust as possible. Yeah, that's it for the overview. Now I want to bring in our judges here, who, as I say, have been had several years of working on the UK Green Business Awards. Maria, I'll come to you first. If I could ask you to maybe introduce yourself, and yeah, how many years have you done as a judge, and what stands out from you for the process?
Yeah, thank you, James, and pleasure to be here. I believe it's my third year of doing this, and I keep coming back, even though it's a lot of hard work, but I've just enjoyed it so much. So I am, by trade, essentially, I am Global Head of Sustainable Investment at IFM Investors, which is an Australian-based but global private markets manager. We specialize in infrastructure. So we invest in critical infrastructure around the world with a hard task to decarbonize it all, and at the same time to invest in infrastructure of the future to support the goals of the net zero transition. So very personally and professionally involved with sustainability space, and very much believe in it, and happy to support any innovation that we can see coming through in the UK. And particularly the reason why I enjoy these awards is because we're kind of on the front line reading about all the cool and exciting things that are happening in the real economy, and all the kind of breakthrough exciting ideas that are out there, and it's all maybe before it's even kind of a viable big product that's marketed and everybody knows about it. It comes here first, so we're one of the first to hear, and these stories just stay with you, you know. So it gives me a lot of hope that we can actually solve all the present day crises and challenges. So yeah, really get a lot of kind of satisfaction from judging these awards.
Absolutely. I mean, that genuinely is one of the feedback we get from all the judges, isn't it? That it is quite an inspiring process, because you get this wonderful snapshot of the huge wave of innovation that is going on, and a lot of it under the radar that you don't normally see day to day.
Absolutely. I mean, it's that and the sandwiches at the judging day.
Another good benefit. Mike, I'm going to bring you in from Innovate UK. I mean, just for those who don't know, if you could give a quick overview of who Innovate UK is, and yeah, how long have you been involved, and what's your highlights from the process?
Yeah, hello everyone. Yeah, Innovate UK are the UK government's innovation agency. We're there to remove barriers to businesses growing faster. We invest public money in doing that in all sorts of different ways. I've worked for them for over a decade now, which is about as how long as I've been a judge on these awards and their predecessors. And I guess what keeps me coming back is just the quality of the debate we have in the room, in the judging room. It is lovely to see all of the good news stories. Going through the entries has just been like being washed over with all positivity, and God, we need some of that right now. But then to go into the room, and we really do, for those who are nearby or highly commended, you can probably console yourself that there was blood on the floor to get even to that stage. We really do have a quality debate, and all bring our own views and perspectives, and it's quite fun, being talked into or out of something that you're supporting. But yeah, it's those great stories that is what we're all there for, really, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, just a quick reminder, everyone, please do drop any questions you've got. We'll get to those in the second half. But yeah, feel free to drop any questions about your entries in the session. Finally, Trewin, yourself, Sizzle now, previously at Hubbub. If you could just let people don't know who Sizzle are, and also yeah, how I think you've been judging since day one of these awards.
Yeah, I mean, I keep being judged because you keep asking me foolishly. But yeah, I have been judging from the very beginning. And what I would say I've seen in terms of the entries, and I think it's really important for everybody who's thinking about entering, is that the quality of the entries has just gone up and up and up. And it's getting really difficult now to sort of pick out the winners. So I mean, I think the first thing I'd say from the judging perspective is take real care and really craft your application, and make the absolute most of the word count, because it's, you should see it as a sort of like an opportunity to really get that sharp message across. And I mean, I've set up a few environment charities and a recycling business. I'm always interested in the innovation and the creativity and where the breakthrough areas are. And I think, again, when you're entering, think about, what is that distinctiveness and what have you done in the past year? I think that's really important. We do get a lot of entries saying, oh, we're a fantastic organization, for 10 years we've done this, but these are awards for the year. So really think about showcasing the difference that you've made in that year. And I think that's what inspires me, is that seeing in a year organizations have gone from, perhaps a humble beginning to achieving something really breakthrough and significant in a very short period of time. And I think that's really inspiring.
Yeah, no, I think one of the really encouraging things about the awards is precisely that tracking of how the green economy's evolved. So when we started doing this 13 years ago, there were lots of entries that were, not to disparage them, but they were about putting the recycling bins in the right place in the office. And now increasingly it's multi-billion-dollar businesses doing incredible projects and really exciting startups with transformational things that could deliver the net zero economy. So it's the quality has absolutely shifted up, but that is by no means, please, there's still fantastic stories to tell. One of the things I should stress is the awards really are for the whole economy. We've had winners in the past from really carbon intensive businesses that are still doing important work to cut their emissions or drive innovation, as well as winners from really kind of pure green businesses that are really ultra low carbon. So, we're not, it is about the quality of the entry and the work that's being done. Businesses from all sectors can win, and that's part of kind of Business Green's philosophy, is that we want to be for the whole economy, because everything needs to change if we are to deliver on these goals. I think Trewin started on it there, but let's get into some of the tips of what makes a good entry. Maria, I'll come to you. Let's start with some of the technical things people could do to make sure their their entry is in line with the criteria and is going to catch the judge's eye. What kind of technical advice would you give people?
Yeah, thanks, James. And I just want to kind of put a caveat that I'm answering as a judge for these awards, but also I've judged lots of other awards in sustainability, pensions, and investment industries, and also won a few awards myself. So I guess it's probably not unique to this particular set of awards, but as big plea is, please stick to the word limit. So it's a technical point, but it's also quite easy to do. And I am actually quite strict. If I get to the point where it's 1,000 words, I just don't read anymore. So you need to make sure that you've impressed the judges within 1,000 word limit. It's a lot of entries, it's a lot of work, and it's also unfair to those who actually sticks by the rules, and tries hard to come in, within the limit. So you have big plea to stick with the word limit. And the other one, which also makes that job much, much easier, is just please answer the questions. So they're questions that you need to answer. And if you use that as the flow of your submission, that it makes our life so much easier, so we've been talking about having robust debates, and they're easier when we compare in sort of apples to apples, or more like for like, in a sense, so it's, so they're there for a reason. And if you could stick to answering the questions, that would be very, very appreciated.
Absolutely, yes. The word count and the criteria really are the two critical key things. Mike, presumably you'd second that. Any other things that you always like to see? I remember in many of the sessions you make the point of making absolutely clear what it is you do, particularly if it's a technology that maybe you understand but others don't. That kind of the clarity of trying to get across what the technology is or what the project is, isn't always there in every entry.
No, it's not. Please explain the problem you're solving. Set that up first before you go diving into the kind of solution. I think we always appreciate plain English. Well-written, readable entries are always going to do better. And the other thing that really turns judges off is assertion without evidence. So that, we have the most amazing blah, 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 left-handed screwdrivers, no evidence. We've had huge impact. Just tell us some numbers. And if they're not there yet, maybe you're a bit early, but we really do like to see some kind of data that really backs up why it's so important. And as Trewin says, tell us why, and that data should be relevant. It should be within the last 12, 18 months. Why now? Why you right now? Not, we've been doing this for a little while, or it's all jam tomorrow.
Absolutely. Trewin, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think I've got a few things. I mean, one, especially for some of the more technical award entries, avoid the jargon. Assume we're all stupid, because in some areas we really are. So just make it really plain and skip the things that you might know in your industry but might not be known outside of that industry. So that would definitely be the first thing. The impact, so as well as the numbers which Mike's mentioned, which is really important, have you had a wider impact? I think I'm really interested in, what have you done above and beyond your immediate business? So can you show that you've had an influence within the sector, with government policy, with the sort of a wider group of people? Because I think the entry is getting so competitive now, is that if you can show that you're a leader in your space and you've influenced others, I think that's super helpful and really important. And then the third thing is that if you're in a regulated business, a lot of the things that we get as entries, I know, are driven by the regulation or forthcoming regulation. So is that really award winning? That's where I start to question. So where are you going above and beyond what's expected of you and what your competitors are doing and what your sector is doing? I think that's super important. We want to, the awards are so high quality now that we want to truly award the ones that are at the front of the queue in terms of what they're achieving. So I think those three things for me.
Yeah, I'd second all of this. I think that kind of wider impact piece, what the impact is really important. I think there's such a narrative. It is the UK Green Business Awards, and companies or projects that can show they are having that wider positive impact on the UK economy are always going to stand out and always going to impress. And the question of scalability, particularly again with some of the sort of the early stage projects, some of the innovation categories, that question of like, well, how scalable is this? Is this something that could be really transformational? That's always going to excite the judges and catch their eye. That doesn't mean there isn't space for smaller things and more niche things. I think those if they're telling a really strong story, that can still work as well. But trying to sort of point out the impact is so important, and those basics of who, what, where, why, when, and how that make a good news story. They also really make a good awards entry and make it sort of clear and easy to navigate. Excellent. We've got through quite a few points already here. I mean, the other thing I was going to ask is more about sort of the style of an entry. I mean, what makes an entry stand out? What gives it because as we say, there's so many good companies doing great work in this space, and a lot of people will be able to follow all of that advice and provide data points and provide evidence that they've done really exciting stuff in the past year. What makes it what maybe makes people get into those sort of top 3 or 4 in an entry that are in with a chance of winning or being highly commended? Maria, come to you to start us off again.
Yeah, sure. So I look for authenticity and storytelling. So I don't want it to be kind of too glossy, obviously done by marketing teams. No disrespect to marketing teams on this call, but it's sort of, I don't want it too polished. I want it to tell a story in plain English, like Mike was saying, in the way that actually sticks with me. So there's some award submissions that from previous years, I still remember them when I talk about it, to people at networking events, like, oh, there's this company that's doing such cool stuff. Like, tell it as a story and as authentically as possible. This is what gets the cut through, because we have to read so many submissions and they're kind of jargonistic, too polished, like they just don't leave an impression, and you want to leave an impression on us. So then when it comes to like the end of the category, we go, oh, that one I definitely remember. So yeah, that would be my advice.
And often that's a human story, isn't it? That kind of that human interest angle. Again, thinking about it as a news story, that kind of personalizes it often.
Yeah, that helps. And obviously we have a category for personal achievements, and those are normally the most interesting to read, because you kind of get to connect with that person, right? Or you sort of try to understand where they're coming from, and you get the background story, and there's like a hero. And so when it's a personal award, they come through more of a story, but there's no reason why sort of business level awards or project level awards can't be written that way as well.
Absolutely. Mike, anything that you'd offer? I mean, obviously that narrative arc piece is important, isn't it, of telling a really effective story?
Yeah, hugely. I mean, it's and with that, you need to explain what the wider problem is. What have you really overcome as part of the achievement you have. Why is the world better now? Again, a bit of data helps to back that up. And yeah, there's usually something that's kickstarted it, usually something that's driven it. It's always better if it isn't what, as Trewin says, something you were forced to do by regulation. And I think the ones that stand out tend to be the ones that go beyond the state of the art. We've got as judges a pretty good idea of what's a benchmarks, kind of level for businesses of all sizes at this stage. And if you're not going beyond that, we're going to very quickly dismiss it. If as you were saying earlier, you've replaced all the single-use plastics in your offices, that's not going to cut through. You need to do something that's really engaging, really pulling us beyond and catches our attention, hits us between the eyes with some, again, I hate to say it, with some clear evidence of impact. Doesn't have to always be data, but what's the impact that it's had?
Absolutely. Trewin, what would be your advice?
Well, after doing this for so many years, you can see through ones that have been written by a PR department instantly. So, even if it is written by
just to jump in defence of the PR department,
all the exclamation marks.
They can write it with input from their colleagues.
I was just about to say
that makes a big difference.
You can see the ones that have been written without that input, and you can see the ones that have been written with it. So, if you have got your PR department doing it, do it together and make sure that it tells all the authentic stories that Maria mentioned. Second one is just have to think about, if you're talking to your mates in, down the pub or socially or wherever you are, what's the story that you tell them that enables them to understand what you do? And it's that level of connectivity, because if it works with your peers and your friends and your family, it will likely work with the judges. So think about that snippet that you use in your conversations outside of your workplace that brings whatever you do to life. I think that's really important. And then thirdly, there's you can add a lot of supporting information, but you have to realize the number of applications that we go through. So if you have really important supporting information, pinpoint it in the application so that we go and actually have a look at it. Because otherwise, if you can imagine the number of entries that come through with loads of supporting information, which could be about anything, it's quite difficult to pick out what's relevant and what's important to that application. So really think about the best use of the supporting information, and more is not necessarily better in that instance. Just make it really focused on what you want.
Yeah. Actually,
I would definitely, sorry, James, I was going to just jump in and definitely say that I think most judges probably won't look at it unless you really make them and explain why it's important, because it's sort of a way of getting around the word count, right? If you just attach more documents for people to read. So, but if it's like a film or something, that maybe is very different and you want to point us to it, then you just don't just attach lots of things, but make a point, in the application. And sorry, I wanted to come in on other things. So we keep mentioning impact, and I wanted to say that for me personally, it's not necessarily absolute impact. It's sort of relative impact to, I guess, to the size and maturity of the company. So if you're punching above your weight, whether you're a big multinational or like a tiny little startup, then I'll be very interested in hearing about it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That point, you don't have to solve the whole net zero transition here, but if you are doing, even in just in your niche having impact, then that can be really important. I did actually have a question here about that. Is it sensible to include supporting material? And I think Trewin's already touched on it, but I think the key point there is it should be material that is supporting of the entry. Maria's right. If you put your whole sustainability report in there or something, then it's unlikely to get read, because it is just sort of adding to the word count. But where it can be really valuable is if it's for the marketing campaign entry, for example, an example of an advert, if it's a short video, or if it's building of the year, just some visuals that are just bring to life the entry, but are also kind of quick to look at and accessible. It has to be supporting of the entry. It can't be sort of a way to kind of get a loads of additional words in there and become the entry itself. So have a think about that, because really good bits of supporting material can really add to an entry, particularly, as I say, if it's something visual, that can be really beneficial. Excellent. We've got a few more questions here. I think we've touched on the importance of data points, and also I think everyone's touched on how the entries have evolved over the years, how much better they've got. Anyone got any particular favourite categories? I mean, this is another key point, isn't it? Picking the right category and making sure you're in line with the criteria. Mike, any particular categories that you always like to be involved in judging?
Well, one of the things that's been so brilliant about how the awards have evolved is we've had to add categories. Once we've started to split categories up and get too many entries, and they say, "Oh, hang on, we ought to spin off a new category here," and that's what's really shown how much the sector's evolved. The whole of the sustainability economy has evolved. Given that we do like the personal stories, it's always fun to look at the rising star ones. I'm a big fan of the projects. Have you done a real flagship project where there's one where you go, "Oh my God, I didn't realize that was kind of possible." And a bit like Maria, I can still remember some from previous years where you go, "Wow, that they did that." I think
that's always nice, isn't it? Sometimes we get ones that are a little bit early, and it's like the re-entry is for the proposal, and then 2 years later the entry is for the actual project, and it's successfully been built, and it just shows that progress is being made.
Yeah, and we all love the rising star ones because it really heartens you to see the quality of the people coming through and hopefully displacing us over time. And it's always fun to watch to read the comms agency ones and see how many of them are put together, as Trewin says, by the marketing team. I don't know how some comms agencies can be such poor communicators, but that's kind of, I find that deeply amusing every time. But yeah, they're either outstanding or they're just garbled marketing speak. Garbled marketing speak.
Again, I would argue in recent years they've got a lot better, haven't they? I think there have been years where you get a lot of buzzwords and it does feel a bit flaky, but increasingly in those categories, you're seeing so many agencies that are specialists in the green
space. We've had that
and
rise of real quality agencies that fit so deeply into this area. And I think that's how all these categories have evolved. Is we're starting to see a proliferation of really high quality businesses in each of these spaces, and that's what's so fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Trewin, any particular ones that you always like the look of?
Yeah, well, it's been fascinating over the years watching, and you can see which sectors are progressing really quickly. So there's been massive done on the energy sector across the energy space. And you're now starting to see it in the finances, stuff that Maria's involved in. The finance packages getting bigger and bigger and more interesting. But it's also intriguing to see which ones aren't progressing quite so quickly. So, the circular economy one, for example, that's a space. It's worthwhile having a look back and see who won last year. And, how do you compare? Are you as good or better than what went in last year? And I think if you had a look at some of the categories, and the one that really springs to mind is, because it's an area I do quite a lot of work in, is the behavior change stuff. Is there's a lot of space for innovation and creativity there. So I think, look back at the last year's entries, think, are we in the right ballpark? Are we better than that? How can we look at what they've done and tell that story ourselves? So I would really recommend that.
Yeah, no, I think that's very valuable, and the level of competitiveness does vary quite a bit. So yeah, it's worth checking them out. We've got lots of questions coming in. Maria, I just wanted to ask just before we move on to the questions from the floor. What you mentioned that you've been nominated in many awards and won a few in your time. I mean, what do people get out of an awards process and being shortlisted? Because obviously it's a lovely feeling and it's a nice evening to get together, but there's a serious point behind awards like these, isn't there? We are trying to help organizations with their marketing, with their story, with their profile. There's a definite benefit to taking the time to put a good entry together.
Absolutely, James. I mean, I think it's winning these awards is an amazing recognition, celebration, and promotion of all the efforts that are going into it, not just the submission, but the work, that sits behind it. And it does help showcase leading practice and what's possible, so the realm of the possible, and it helps inspire others to strive for more as well. So it has that kind of multiplier effect, I think, so we get to promote those fantastic cases that then could be picked up by others, and people try to achieve those as well. And then, as you said, the event itself, it's a fantastic networking opportunity. I don't think there's any other event I can think of. So I've talked about different other things I do, but they're all quite kind of segregated. Oh, here's a pensions industry, there's just pensions people. Oh, here's like infrastructure people or something like that. Here's the whole economy, and it's quite rare to actually get together in a room and be able to make connections and talk to each other, meet people. So again, I've made like really, really, really good connections just from either judging the awards, but also actually being at the awards as well. So it's definitely worth it.
Yeah. No, I've heard wonderful stories from people in the past who have emailed the following days to thank us and say that kind of, you know, deals have literally been done, or partnerships have been have kind of started at the event, and also people who have, you know, have won or been highly commended and have used it to generate business. So there is an ROI here. We would very much like to point that out. Excellent. We've got lots of questions coming in, a few technical ones and a few asking for broader advice. One here: would it be okay for a law firm to submit in Consultancy of the Year? Yes, I think absolutely. I think consultant, you know, often the terms for the awards can be interpreted in their broadest sense. I think we did used to have a Law Firm of the Year category, but now I think that should absolutely go in Consultancy of the Year. Also got several people asking if you're entering more than one award, there may be evidence that straddles both, provided it's clearly relevant to both. Is that likely to be a turnoff? I mean, just generally on that, it's absolutely fine to enter more than one award. Just to take that example, you know, you could be Company of the Year as a law firm as well as Consultancy of the Year, and that applies across multiple sectors. And indeed, many people do enter multiple awards, and we'd absolutely recommend that. And again, obviously, there could be evidence that does be relevant to different categories, and so feel free to include that. I think I can probably speak for all the judges. I think one of the things that doesn't quite work, and probably wouldn't now even get you onto the short list, is if you're just cutting and pasting exactly the same entry across. Mike's got his finger up there from
we do notice
one category into the other, because then you can't be realistically answering the kind of the criteria questions.
It goes back to that point about questions, you know, so if you need to try and tailor your award submission to the questions.
So you can absolutely repeat some of it. Obviously, some of it will be very relevant, but I think there has to be a degree of tailoring to the entry if you want to maximise the chances in different categories. But equally, yes, do feel free to enter more than one, because there probably will be more than one that's relevant. Do you include these questions in our submission, and does this contribute to the word count? That's a slightly technical question. I think it would contribute to the word count. It's entirely up to you how you structure the answer. Some people do like to include the questions and then have clear answers to them. Others, you can kind of naturally feed it into the flow of the entry. Yeah, if you feel like it's going to use up too much of the word count, then maybe just kind of feed it into the flow of the entry that makes sure you are kind of answering those pointer questions. Anyone with anything else to add on that? Does that? I think that broadly makes sense.
Well, I think they come in the boxes, don't they? So
I think you don't need to repeat the question, because, you know, we'll have read similar ones from lots of different people. So if we don't know what the question is, we've done something very wrong.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, I think that's a fair point. Somebody asking, how many applications did we receive last year? It was about 400, I think, give or take. It was certainly a record year. It's been ticking up every year. So as I say, it's about 400, and then it is whittled down to the shortlists. With the shortlist, we try and limit it to no more than 10 entries in each category, and often a bit shorter than that, which we feel, you know, and that actually, I mean, the main judging panel doesn't look at this. This is for the editorial team, but that's often the hardest part of the process, because in some of those categories, you'll have 20 or 30 entries. And they really are 90% of them now really quite strong, and it is quite difficult to say, you know, who you're definitely going to include in the cut. So there are certainly a lot of entries. It is very competitive, but yeah, please don't let that put you off, because if you've got a good story to tell, then we want to hear from as many people as possible, and we do, as I say, we try to get as many people who are doing great work represented on the night as possible. So please do.
I don't know if you noticed, you know, but my very environmentally friendly building just turned off the lights because I'm sitting so still. It doesn't, trying to conserve electricity.
There we go. Something to maybe put in an entry, the green build for the green building of the year. Somebody's asked, what was the motivation to add the sustainability report category? So every year we do like to change the categories a little bit. You'll always maybe take 2 out and add 2 in, just to keep it fresh and evolving. The sustainability report category, we thought We're talking amongst the team, we thought it was quite a nice idea because now most companies and increasingly regulatory are required to produce these sustainability reports, and there's a broad range of them. There are some really good ones that are really engaging and tell a really strong story, and also some that are really quite dry and maybe almost become a bit of a waste of time because they're not being read, or they're not not telling the story as effectively as they might. And also it's an increasingly important part of the sustainability function. So our core readership are sustainability executives. They'll spend a lot of time over the course of the year putting together a report. And we wanted to give a chance to showcase the best in practice again, to kind of provide the wider audience with what good looks like, and hopefully others can learn from that. And I think the criteria in that category are really looking at telling a good story, making it really engaging, and then also demonstrating that you're using it as a business to then move things forward, and make sure you're hitting those goals. So I hope the judges agree. I think that's quite an interesting area that, as I say, a lot of work's going into it, and not a nice one to recognise. And hopefully we're hoping to get some good entries. You never know with a new category, but we're hoping we get some really interesting entries that demonstrate how people are doing compliance, but doing it in a really good, innovative, exciting way.
I think with all the categories, it's where you as a business have really gone deep and are doing things properly with deep thought, and then making and are having achievements because of it. We want to find those stories and hold them up and celebrate them and show to others what's possible.
Yeah,
and that's as good an angle as any other way that you're delivering as a business, and doing it with real meaning.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also going back to celebrating efforts, reporting now is particularly for firms spanning multiple jurisdictions, it is a nightmare. There's a lot of effort, a lot of kind of man hours and woman hours going into the production, but it's never seen as a glamorous job, or the job that's well rewarded. So actually celebrating some breakthroughs, cool technology, use cases, any kind of innovation or efficiencies that people work hard to bring in, it's a good opportunity to do that.
Yeah, no, excellent. Yeah, let's say please do consider that one, because we're hoping to get some good entries, and it is a new one, and we want to, if hopefully it'll work out this year. Couple more questions before we wrap up. For the marketing category, what if the campaign doesn't have any visual creative output? If it's all about SEO and paid search? No, that's absolutely fine. I think, again, just as long as you're explaining what the entry is and why it's impressive and why it had positive impacts, it doesn't have to be a TV advertising campaign or a creative campaign. It could be other components of a marketing campaign, as long as you're, as I say, really highlighting what was done, why it was innovative, and what positive impacts it had. That's absolutely fine. Trewin, I'll bring you in here. I mean, that's often the case, isn't it? We'll often within a category have something that might feel a little bit left field, but can still, as long as it's still meeting the criteria, it absolutely can compete in the category.
Yes, I think it's really important to define the difference between an output, which could be we've done this many things and it's gone out to this number of people, and the outcome, because it might well be, you've done very limited comms, but it's hit the 2 or 3 organizations or people who can make a real difference, and you've got a significant outcome. So I think for the comms stuff, show the outcome of the comms and what it's delivered, rather than the volume of what you've produced, because we all know in marketing, lots of it doesn't work, and you can spend a lot of time getting stuff out there which gets no traction. So really concentrate on that traction and impact bit. And it could be you've just got one politician to do something amazing. So yeah, I think increasingly looking at that outcome from your comms is going to set you apart from everybody else.
Absolutely. We have a question here from the UKEIA, which is the UK Edible Insect Association, which sounds absolutely fantastic. A really important way of getting sustainable protein, and we love that sort of thing.
They're always bugging you, aren't they, James?
Indeed. Oh, very good, very good. They are a trade body, but run by a consultancy, and would love to enter. Need to think carefully about how we might be eligible. Yeah. Let's. I think we'll be in touch. We'll drop you a line on that, or maybe if you drop my colleague Sabrina a line, we can come back to you on where we think that might fit best. I'm sure there absolutely would be some. It might well be consultancy. We've definitely had trade bodies enter in the past, and they do a really important job. Often in
could be a project as well if it's about a specific sort of initiative.
Project,
Or
consultancy,
campaign,
or campaign, marketing campaign. If there's a campaign component, drop us a line, and we'll maybe offer a little bit of advice on that one, because I think
James
trade
will
bodies
worm
definitely
your
can
way
fit.
into one of the categories.
There we go. We will find a way. This could go on for ages. We have, a really important question here. As a small not-for-profit business, do we have to buy a table? We have fewer than 10 employees, ! And winky face. Yeah, absolutely. You do not have to buy a full table. Obviously, we would love it if people do, but we do bespoke packages for smaller organisations. So if you if you are make the shortlist, please do just get in touch with the team, and we'll do our best to accommodate smaller organisations that would like a few seats or a half table, for example. I mean, just on that, I just want to make just huge thanks to everyone who supported the awards over the years, because it really is a huge part of what allows Business Green to continue to report for the audience. We think it's a really fantastic event. It's really, really good. As I say, good promotion, good networking, a really good chance to bring the community together. But it is also a commercial thing. So please do, if you are entering, please do consider joining us for the awards themselves. And that really does allow Business Green to continue to invest in high quality journalism and continue to serve the sector. So we think it's a really good return on investment. But please do, come along. There's table packages, also sponsor packages available, because it's a fantastic audience of really senior decision makers from right across the green business community, and policy makers from government and civil service as well. So if you want to get your brand in front of them, there are some really competitive sponsor packages available for the awards.
Can I
go ahead.
Yeah, just add to that after your sales spiel, which is totally true, of course. But it's also a brilliant way of rewarding the people in your team who perhaps don't get recognised for the stuff they're doing. I think what I've noticed through the awards that our teams have won in the past, getting the people who've been at the doing the work to come along to the awards, that they it's a real honour and a treat, and it shows them that they're not sort of fighting a lone cause, but there's loads of like-minded organisations. So don't underestimate, in terms of the awards event, the power it has on motivating and rewarding members of your teams who might have been working incredibly hard to get whatever it is across. So I think that's a really important part of the awards ceremony, as well as all the reasons James has mentioned.
Yeah, absolutely. And then on top of that, also there's often companies, particularly in sort of the consultancy or the agency side of things, will bring their clients or their prospective clients, and it's a fantastic way to showcase what you're doing, and a good bit of hospitality that and the event does tend to have has that positive wider impact. We get political speakers, there'll be some interesting people there. We have a fantastic comedian. It's always a good event. I must wrap up with the sales pitch. Do we have any final questions? Excellent. Somebody about sustainability report of the year is a new category management. What do you expect will make a winning submission in sustainability report of the year? I mean, it's hard to tell until we see the entries, but something, again, like as we've been saying through all this advice, something that's clear, a really concise entry, tells a good story, with something like sustainability report that's kind of visually impactful, that has good design, that stands out a little bit from the norm, something that's sort of a little bit innovative, and also tells the story of how you develop the report, because obviously reporting is a challenging technical process, and I think if you can put a bit of detail into sort of how you did that effectively, and then how it impacted the business to actually deliver on its targets, so that it's not just a kind of compliance exercise, those I imagine will be entries that will really stand out. Mike, do you want to come in there?
Yeah. I think where you're going deeper and beyond everybody else. I mean, you can read other people's sustainability reports. Are you looking at every last potential impact that you have? Are you going right through your scope 3 emissions? I think the ones that really embrace all of it and seeing what's our role in changing just beyond the compliance stuff is what's going to be really exciting in any of these categories. I think this is that there. We say to exhaust the point, we do want to find those stories where you've pushed your business or your project or yourself far beyond what everyone else is doing. We want to find those and hold those stories up and celebrate them.
Yeah, Absolutely. We got just one last question here. That this is actually a really significant one. Somebody saying they work on the wider sustainability agenda. Are we only interested in the green agenda, i.e. net zero, rather than the wider ESG space? We actually get this question quite a lot around Business Green's coverage as well. I think it's a slightly tricky one because, you know, it is the UK Green Business Awards, and therefore the primary focus absolutely is on the green environmental sustainability side of things, although that isn't exclusively net zero. It could mean nature, it could mean other aspects of circular economy, as we touched on, and other aspects of the sustainability space. But yeah, it is, the primary focus is environmental sustainability. However, that said, often if you are trying to tell a good story, bringing in some of the social impact, bringing in some of the positive things that you've done in terms of governance absolutely can help strengthen the entry, but that wouldn't be relevant as the kind of primary focus of an entry. I think that's fair to say. Not to say that we don't care about those issues, of course we do, but this is the UK Green Business Award, so that should be the primary focus. And if you want to mention other social benefits, then please do. There we go. Excellent. Oh, very last question from someone. If we are shortlisted, do we get to talk to the judges or asked to provide further details? The answer to the question is no. Please don't. Yeah, you won't have to come in and do sort of any interview or any further details. The entries are judged solely on the entries. I think the T's and C's have some language in there about the judge's decision being final and all this sort of thing. Yeah, we're trying to judge based on the entries alone, just to keep it as fair as possible, and make sure we're comparing like with like. So once you've entered, there'll be nothing more to do. Sorry, Maria.
However, if you buy a table or half a table, you get to talk to the judges at the event.
You do.
Where we'll swear blind we didn't judge your category, right?
Yeah, yeah. Actually, that is an important point to make. It isn't done on unanimity either. The judges, often in many categories there will be unanimity. There might be a standout that everybody voted for, but often it is so close that people will have voted. So don't take it out on any of the judges. They might have voted for you, and it might not have been quite a sufficient votes to get it over the line. Excellent. I think that's it. Thank you so much to everyone. Thanks for so many great questions. I hope people have found this useful. Huge thank you to Trewin, to Mike, and to Maria for joining us this afternoon, and of course to all the judges. You check out the website and check out everyone's names. As I said, I think that's everything. Final, yeah, just don't forget that deadline on 5 p.m. on the 28th of February. If you do have any more specific questions, I think on the website you can find the contact details of my colleague Sabrina Rodriguez, our head of marketing here, and she can answer any questions or distribute them amongst the team. We'll get back with you if you have any specific technical questions about the entries. Please do keep that date of the 11th of June in the diary, and as soon as that shortlist is announced, you will be able to reserve your place. We're hoping, it was very close to a sellout last year, we're hoping we'll be fully booked this year, so please do have that date in the diary. And I think that's it from me. Thanks again to Mike, to Trewin, and to Maria, and I hope you found it useful. Yes, and most of all, good luck. Thank you so much for putting the time in. It really is a fantastic event, and thanks for your support. So yeah, best of luck with those entries, and we look forward to reading them.